Hello everyone, I will introduce myself first and my name is Nizhar Mukti. You can call me Nizhar. And then I will present result of the journal that I had made. This present about assessment and risk management. This topic discuss how we understand risk and how we handle them in decision making. Before I present you guys, do you know what is risk assessment and risk management? And before that, you know what is risk itself? Risk is an important concept in many fields such as engineering, business, health, and technology. In today's world, uncertainty is unavoidable, so understanding and managing risk becomes very important. Okay, next. This is a definition of risk assessment. Risk assessment is a systematic and structured process used to identify potential hazard or uncertain event, analyze their cause and possible consequence, and evaluate the level of risk by considering both the likelihood of occurrence and the severity of impact. It also involves the characterization of uncertainties and the strength of knowledge supporting the analysis, providing a comprehensive understanding of risk to support informed decision making. And then this definition of risk management. Risk management is comprehensive decision making process that involves selecting to implementing appropriate strategies and action to address involved risk. It includes avoiding, reducing, transferring, or asserting risk, while also considering uncertainties, stakeholder values, and maybe organizational objective with the aim of minimizing negative impact and enhancing system performance and relation. So, what different? We look those uh, we look those described. I divide into 3 points. And the first is difference, second relation between, and third those example. The first risk assessment focused on understanding on describe the nature of risk, include its causes, consequences, and uncertainties. And then risk management focus on decision making action using the result of risk assessment to determine how risk should be handled in practice. And then relation between risk assessment and risk management is provide information while risk management use that information to make decision and take action. For example, risk assessment identify the risk of system failure and estimate its probability and impact. Risk management deciding to install backup system to reduce the risk. Risk assessment and risk management are closely related. Risk assessment provide information and risk management use that information to make decision and implement action. Then risk management decide to install backup system to reduce the risk. Next, the human element in risk science. The human element in risk science means that risk is not only about numbers, model, or technical analysis, but also about how human think, feel, and make decisions. Human behavior, perception, and social factors strongly influence how risks are understood and managed. Why is important? Because even if a risk analysis is technically correct, it may fail if people do not understand it or not trust it. Therefore, human factors are essential for effective risk management. Like in the first, psychology explain how people perceive and react to risk. Sociology focus on how groups, communities, and society respond to risk. Trust, communication, and social values play a key role in whether people accept or reject risk-related decisions. Next, the risk decision-making engine. The risk decision-making engine refers to the process of transforming data and information into decisions about risk. It explains how we move from events and knowledge to actual decision making. The process consists of several steps, and step first is evidence, gathering data and information through testing and analysis. Step two is knowledge base, accepting science truth and expert beliefs. Step three, risk evaluation, knowledge to judge the significance of the risk. Step 4, decision makers review, combining risk data and societal priorities and cost benefit realities. Measure the immeasurable refers to the challenge of assessing risk that cannot be easily quantified or measured using numbers. In many real world situations, not all aspects of risk can be expressed in exact probabilities or data. This is measuring the immeasurable. The first, probability and magnitude. The second is expected loss. Third, the traditional triplet like S, what meaning S is specific scenarios, and P probabilities, and C consequence, long used by the nuclear industry. And the last, the answer triplet CQK. What meaning is C? C is specific consequence. What's Q? Q is measure of uncertainty. And the last K is knowledge, strength of background knowledge. Distinguishing the two phases of uncertainty means understanding that uncertainty has two different and both must be considered. In risk analysis, these two types are aleatory uncertainty and epistemic uncertainty. What's meaning aleatory uncertainty? Aleatory uncertainty refers to natural randomness or variable that cannot be controlled. And that example like rolling a die or flipping a coin. Then what meaning epistemic uncertainty? Epistemic uncertainty is comes from lack of knowledge or information. For that example is predicting the exact impact of novel virus. These like three pillars of risk management strategy. Risk management strategy, the first is risk informed, focus on optimization and efficiency. The second, precautionary and cautionary, focus on robustness and surviving the unknown. The last, discursive, focus on social lessons and alignment of values. Navigating the realm of deep uncertainty, like what the problem and what the solution. The problem is extremism, like traditional statistical model fail. And what the solution is adaptive analysis. We must shift away from calculating optimal mathematical prediction. Then system defense, robustness, and resilience. The definition of robustness is the capacity to withstand vigorous approximation, ignorance, and initial stops. And that strategy is optimizing for worst case scenarios, then pick performance citing the system for impact. And resilience is the ability to sustain, adapt, and restore basic functionality following a stressor. Strategy is continuous monitoring, anticipation, learning, and flexible response. Then this is human problem, not just a machine problem. The psychological flaw: humans chronically underestimate massive systemic risks while panicking over minor, highly visible ones. And the psychology situation is high reliability organizations like HRO do not rely solely on software. They rely on collective mindfulness. With failure, reluctance to simplify, and deep difference to frontline expertise. And this uh, where the science is heading. In the law, we had dynamic assessment moving away from static, and the hike. Then number one is emerging race, developing framework from scenarios where background knowledge is incredibly weak but potential consequence, and the higher complex system evolving past linear fault trees to model interdependent system of system like global supply chains and power grids where cascading failures, desi traditional analysis, and then rebuilding the architecture of uncertainty. Had a tree rebuilding, and the first measurement is risk is no longer just probability and consequence. The second strategy. What's the strategy's meaning? Navigating extreme instant requires abounding pure prediction in favor of robustness. And the last is execution. Flawless mathematics mean nothing without human sociology and collective mindfulness. The modern science of risk. Point first, the evolution. Why we use evolution? Because evolution has evolved from simply calculating expected historical losses to activity characterizing. And then point two, the mandate. The most effective risk management does not attempt to perfectly predict the future. Point three is that goal. The ultimate objective is to build system capable of withstanding the unforeseen, recovering from uncre- un- unprecedented, and continually learning from both. And this is source material and reference. When before I use PPT, I read this journal. Yeah, and thank you for watching this